Hi Sophia, this is Florence here. Florence Nyasamu Thomas from Lives of Color. What we normally do is really work with the Literature Festival and other organizations to ensure that young people and people from all ethnicity can own their own narrative.
Yeah.
You've had a fantastic year this year, and it's really, really good to see you at the Literature Festival. And one of the things that, when reading and looking at, I think we have in common. I grew up in Kenya, and you've got Gambian heritage.
Yeah.
How did that influence your writing?
So I found out really late that griots, the traditional storytellers, they originate from Gambia and they spread across West Africa, telling stories, and that's how people would communicate ideas and how people would teach each other.
Mm-hmm.
So where I'd already started doing poetry at about 14, 15, I found out about griots at 16, and I realised that storytelling was something that was more than just an interest. It was something that my families historically have always done.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's definitely that connection there, and I talk about home a lot in this idea of home, and that is the foundation. Like, my identity is still very much in these spaces.
Okay, when you say home, because most of the time people ask, oh, will you go back home? And home, what is home for you then?
I think home is a concept. I think the idea that home is wherever you were born or where your parents come from is maybe a bit too old school. I think home is wherever your heart feels most at rest, where it feels most comfortable. I think it's where it feels most comfortable, actually, because home could be a country elsewhere that you've never been to before, but suddenly there's a peace that you find from that space that you can't get anywhere else. So I think it's where you're most at ease.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I left Kenya about 30 years ago, and I found my home here.
Yeah.
And Kenya, yes, it could be somewhere I live, but it's not really.
Yeah.
I identify this to be home. So, for all the young people out there, what would be your one piece of advice if they want to write, if they want to share what they're feeling, where they are? What would be one piece of advice that you would give to them?
To tell your truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from a writer was that the skill is in how well you tell the story, but the story already exists, and there's a poem inside everything that you experience, from the looks on the train to what it's like getting into a certain space, to what you ate, to how you deal with heartbreak, to reactions to the conversations you've had. There's a poem inside all of that, and it's just pulling it out and also remembering that your story is worth that canvas, and there's nothing around your life that should stop your truth from meeting a page.
That is very powerful. We are the Cheltenham Literature Festival, so how have you found the experience of being here today?
Oh, it's amazing just seeing how articulate some of the young people are, all of the young people are, and how empowered they are to share such important messages, and they were touching on such important topics today, and it gives me a lot of hope that things are in good hands. The future's in good hands, and seeing poetry used as a tool to do just that it's a beautiful thing. I think poetry is such a gentle form of rebellion and expression, but it's so powerful and so impactful.
And just lastly, growing up, what did you read, and how's that made you now become who you are today?
I read the Cherub books a fair bit, over and over, until way later than I should have. I read a lot of Philip Ridley. I read a lot of books that create this whole other world, and by the time you're maybe 2 books in, it very much normalises it. Mm-hmm. So I think I used to struggle between what the real world was and what we were living in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beautiful thing about books, because we haven't got to decide. We can disappear from here and go to a land that doesn't actually exist, but we're there and we know the characters and we know the families. So I think I grew up on Cherub books, actually, my main reads, and as I got older I started to read a lot of Persian literature, just because the writing is so beautiful, the way they speak. A lot of contemporary African literature as well, that was always in the house. A lot of James Baldwin and Marcus Garvey. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, thank you very much. So that's been really, really good to speak to you. One last word.
Thank you for having me, and give your heart a pen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.